Those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. That is a phrase that I remember hearing in school, like from the first grade on. And growing up and everything like that, it would pop up in a movie, a TV show. I'd hear people say it in real life and a few other things, and never really got it. And then as I got older, I started realizing that no matter how much time goes by, as people, especially when you get a group of people, we're creatures of habit. And that's why as you get older and you get wiser and you have life experiences, you start picking up on people's behavior, and all of a sudden you start having a little bit of deja vu, and you're sitting there like, feels like I've been here before, and you pick up on things and keep yourself out of trouble. And then as I got even older and started paying attention to the news and a few things and reading, and I started realizing that history can also be a weapon. People can go back and study, wars and politics, and see things that people have figured out, the psychology, the ability to go back to Machiavellian times and read those books, and see how people would react, little tricks on how to manipulate masses. And also what had come before will happen again. That people are predictable, especially in the masses. And that's one of the reasons I don't have television. I cut the cord, back in like 2008, 2009. There's just garbage on there, and I started picking up on the news. I'm not yelling conspiracy theory, but I started picking up on the news how we'll hear some great thing about a celebrity. Meanwhile, a week or two later, we'll hear how Congress passed something in the middle of the night while everybody was distracted with this, and that has constantly gone on. So this is a review of the Squadron Supreme miniseries from 1985, 12 issues from Marvel, written by Mark Gruenwald. It's got art by a couple people, Bob Hall, Paul Ryan, John Buscema, and I've been doing YouTube for 5 years, and this is one of those series that when I started out, I always said I was going to review. I've always waved the flag for it. I've talked about it in a few videos, and I've waited and I've waited. And I've seen one or two reviews, and I've seen a few people pop up and buy the book because I got it, and I was just so happy, and they read it. But what I always waited on was for somebody else to pick up on some of the things that I read into it. In 1985, when this came out, this book was on the newsstands, and I picked it up simply because the Squadron Supreme is Marvel's version of the Justice League. I may do a history of the Squadron Supreme / Squadron Sinister in another video, but we want to talk about this one. Now, when this came out, Watchmen had not come out yet. The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. I don't know if it was out yet or had gotten started, but the last issue was very late in this 4-issue miniseries, and of course we all know that it ended with Batman and Superman fighting. The Squadron Supreme, now that's relevant because this book with Mark Gruenwald he was sort of building up to the same conclusion that Frank Miller was doing around the same time. There's no way that, in my opinion, Mark Gruenwald knew where Frank Miller was going with this, right? And then this book ran a year from 85 to 86, and somewhere along that time, the way I remember it, Watchmen started a little bit later on, probably towards the end of the Squadron Supreme, but you can only get that in comic book shops through a direct market. So at 12 years old, I'm getting the Squadron Supreme, thinking, oh great, finally, miniseries were still new, Crisis had been going on, and now all of a sudden, this series through Marvel, we want to see the Justice League how Marvel would have done them, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Now, Mark Gruenwald was known as the Marvel Encyclopedia around the offices and stuff, and the guy was well loved. He knew trivia, he knew everything. The man helped write the official handbook to the Marvel Universe twice, and he had a phenomenal run of something like 10 to 12 years on Captain America, and when he passed, everybody just flipped out and was just heartbroken. But this was like his masterpiece, because what I heard is that he got complete creative control on what he could do with this, right? So when I first read it, Squadron Supreme, they're the heroes of this world, okay, and it's the Justice League. And reading it over the years, buying it off the stands and reading it over the years, and we're up on 30 years of this thing coming out, I also started figuring out that Mark Grunwald, in my opinion, reading through his work, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is my interpretation. This man just loved comic books, and he knew his DC comics as well. Okay, now, first of all, why talk about Squadron Supreme? Because this book has been heavily influential for uh, other books over the years. This was the first book to have the heroes decided to be proactive, and that'll come up in the review, right? This also was one of the first books that had a real reason for heroes to be fighting heroes, if you want to call it that, besides a misunderstanding or thinking they're the villain and stuff. It has a definite build-up. This book influenced Kingdom Come. Without Squadron Supreme, there would have been no Kingdom Come. In the early 2000s, late 90s, everybody went crazy over Grant Morrison's and Frank Quietly. I think it was Frank Quietly. No, Brian Hitch. Oh no, going blank during this. But anyway, The Authority came out, and The Authority took the same concept where they were tired of being reactive and decided to be proactive and decided they were going to help solve the world's problems. That book was so influential that everybody was talking about it. It was in magazines. I hadn't heard a buzz like that seriously since probably Watchmen, to be honest. Just my interpretation. I could be wrong. And even there's a YouTube video that came out around that time where everybody was like, this is The Authority, because they actually had U2 flying around Matrix style, standing like some of the images from The Authority and stuff. So the book, took off. And you don't hear a lot of people talking about The Authority anymore and stuff, but Squadron Supreme, I think, still is held on, because it was the original. Now, to get into the book, I want to have to talk about politics. This is going to be a long video. And the whole deal about politics is that was one of the reasons I've avoided talking about Squadron Supreme, because people are so deep in their convictions, and I had to make sure that my convictions didn't bleed through while I was reading it, while I was reviewing this. But just to get it out there, I've always looked at politics the same way as the big picture. There's actually Dr. Spectrum is actually a character I kind of relate to with how I look at kind of look at things. It's not so much being on the middle of the fence. It's just like Democrats, Republicans, liberals, right wing, left wing, all that stuff. I always heard good things from all of them that you could pull from, and then I always hear dumbass things from the rest of them too. I've never thought in absolutes, and that's always been like a thing with me. Like, I don't understand the person who pulls up in their minivan around election time, and they've got all the bumper stickers, and they're supporting a candidate, and they got everything right there, and they got the wife and the 3 kids, and it always felt kind of fake, and it was like they were sheep. And then as I sort of talked to a few people who were in politics as much as I could, and basically what you do is just end up doing a lot of listening, I started getting the idea that they were just happy that there was somebody up on a pedestal that if they ended up taking the fall or being judged or being attacked and stuff, they were just happy it wasn't them. I've never got the mentality, of just delving into politics. And plus people get so angry. And if there's no such thing as in my mind, a civil conversation about politics. It sort of gets in there. So there'll be a few things that kind of bleed through, because there's a lot of parallels with what Mark Grunwald has pulled from history and Americana and democracy, totalitarianism, monarchies and stuff. That they're very subtle in here, because that he is pulled from that I see going on now with Obama. I'll say it. Yes, I'm in America. I live in America. I realize I have viewers in Canada, England, Australia. I even have, so I do apologize for this being American centric, if you will. But, I got to talk about what I know, and this is where I grew up, and I am a patriot. But one more disclaimer there is but when it comes to me being a patriot for this country, there's other things that I really respect about other countries, like we'll say England. Take England for example, right? They're in the 30s, Germany with Hitler and the Third Reich, that party and stuff, and with Mussolini and Japan, and they just sort of had a domino effect of just going through country by country in Europe and taking over and taking it down. And then you get to this island, and it was the first place in Europe where they said no. So despite the fact that they've given us Monty Python and Doctor Who and all this great entertainment and all these great writers and artists and things, it always comes down to, like, when you look back in history, they said no, you know. So anyway, moving on here, right? Squadron Supreme, we open up, basically, these characters are the Justice League, okay? We'll just get out there and say it. Hyperion is Superman. Princess Power is Wonder Woman. Nighthawk is our Batman. The Wizard is Flash. Lady Lark is our Black Canary. Dr. Spectrum is Green Lantern. He goes through several names, but American Eagle, who I think he was also the Golden Eagle, and that's not right. But anyway, he had a second name, but he comes as the Blue Eagle in this book, is our Hawkman. Of course, we have our Zatanna character. We have our Green Arrow character. Amphibian is our Aquaman. Tom Thumb is our resident scientist slash Atom, even though he doesn't shrink. You know, they've made him a dwarf. So you get the idea, right? They live in a satellite, okay? Now, what we're picking up here is Kyle Richards, who became Nighthawk, our Batman. Hung up the suit, retired. Much like Dark Knight, that's the little parallels I was talking about. He retired, became a congressman, ended up becoming president of the United States. 2 years into him becoming president and being retired as Nighthawk and stuff, Overmind came from the future. And Overmind was just this badass villain who has mind control and future technology and stuff, and he just decimated America, right? He got the Squadron Supreme to work for him by taking over their minds. That was always a thing with the Squadron Supreme. When this version of the Squadron Supreme were actually fighting the Avengers or anybody else, it was always mind control. Hawkeye or somebody in one of the Kurt Busiek was writing some Avengers where he had one of the characters point out maybe on their world they're more susceptible to mind control than anything else. But anyway, but America has been decimated politically, financially, spiritually, morally, everything. Okay, it is gone. Squadron Supreme has conquered Overmind more or less, sent his ass back to the future, but America has been laid in waste, right? So this is where I read the book where I was just like, oh, this is the Justice League in you know, Marvel Comics, and this is what they would have done with them. And they just, I read it as like, this is what they were saying about DC. It was like a wasteland. Now we're going to rebuild, right? Well, basically this book reads two ways: a straight on superhero story, seeing these guys get a goal, interact, be part of their world. We see what they would have done. Nice comic book story. Lots of words, a lot of word balloons, exposition, a lot of flashbacks, a lot of fill-in things, you know, old comic book style. But then there's another way to read it where the genius of Mark Gruenwald is that it's very political, a lot of symbolism, but it's very subtle. Things are done in actions. There's little conversations you kind of got. Once you click your mind onto it, it's so obvious you could kick yourself, right? So we open up with Hyperion still in his mask. All the characters are still wearing masks and stuff, right? And it's called the utopian principle. And the satellite, their Justice League satellite, if you will, is falling to Earth, right? Hyperion's trying to stop it himself, you know. They're trying to get it to at least crash somewhere in the ocean where it'd be safe without falling apart and going everywhere. And Hyperion's trying to do it himself. And all the heroes pop up. Amphibian gives him the thumbs up that he made it to the ocean. All the other heroes show up, and they end up helping out, trying to get this thing beached now and everything like that so they can get something out of it. Everybody ends up helping. Everybody's talking about how, you know, it seems like everything around the squadron has been crashing lately, and with America has been crashing lately. And right off the bat, I started realizing Mark Gruenwald has as a genius, this is a symbol of everything crashing down around them, like what they're saying and stuff like that. This is America. This is Squadron Supreme. Everything you know before with the Squadron Supreme has been destroyed. We're starting anew here, okay? And they get around and they start touring America. And the first thing they see is that people are starving. They let us know about this world in the exposition. People are starving. They're going around. There's all kinds of looting going on. There's little groups of people saying, what you hear is going to do. You want to stop us and stuff? Nuke, who's their firestorm, right? He kind of symbolizes the youth of America at the time. You know, I'm in my 40s, and I remember being young, and you couldn't tell me anything. You know, I was invincible. It's time for the new. It's time for change. You know, you just get, that's just the mindset of the young. Even the military, after seeing the looters, even the military shoots on them because they're trying to keep some kind of order. They're freaked out. There's no leadership. There's nothing going on. Older people are showing up and saying, "Who are you to come down here and tell us what to do?" and everything. And they're in a rough position. Now, let's talk about these characters for a minute, right? We have Nighthawk, who is the president. We have Hyperion, our Superman. What does Superman stand for? Truth, justice, and the American way. Then we have Power Princess, who is our archetype for Wonder Woman. What is Wonder Woman? Fighting for your rights in her satin tights, star-spangled shorts. My version of Wonder Woman that I want to see come back has the American Eagle come on, on her chest and everything like that, red, white, and blue, and everything like that. Then we have Dr. Spectrum. What was Green Lantern? Green Lantern was diversity. It was the Green Lantern Corps is actually a melting pot of different races and planets and stuff, with a little bit of authority there, right? What else we got here? And then we have the American Eagle. He touches on the fact that the legacy. During World War II, they kind of hint that there was a superhero group, much like a Justice Society during World War II. But, his granddad or his dad or something was the American Eagle. And about the second, third issue in this, he gets pointed out that he's changed his name again to Blue Eagle. And he talks about his granddad being the original American Eagle. And I think that says a whole lot right there, man, in the state of America. When you first read it, you're just thinking legacy, old name change, costume change, and everything like that. Yeah, and that's probably part of it. But basically, what Mark Gruenwald's subtly done has, from being the proud American Eagle character and proud to have that name, our nation's bird, our national bird, what the eagle stands for, it turns out it's Blue Eagle. It's a sad thing. He's blue. Also, it also makes me think about Sam the Eagle from the Muppets being blue, and Tangled Up in Blue by Bob Dylan, but I digress and stuff, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. There's little things in there that goes on. So then, after seeing the state of America and going around and seeing all the looting and all the guns and going over how did we get here, and everybody just meeting up and they're all tattered, their costumes being tattered, even tells us the mood and the state of America, what's going on, what can they do, and they give us the history, and they talk about things they've seen and stuff, like the people fighting for food and the wizard just feeling all the guns and everything like that. The wizard just can't take it and everything. Now these are heroes that are supposed to be proactive, and then all of a sudden they get to Power Princess, or Wonder Woman, and she talks about her utopian society, or her paradise island. And basically how they just separated themselves from man, and even though they were warriors and things, and in this version they were genetically manipulated by the Kree, I think. They had visited them and stuff, but they'd use their utopia society to study and become knowledgeable and stuff, and eventually when they just left Princess Power behind, told her she decided to stay, and they left Earth, so your utopia is literally and figuratively gone from Earth. Okay, we have all this anarchy, and you get the idea now, but it's symbolic that paradise, the utopia, has left the world. Okay, everything's in shambles. So they get together and they're like, you know what, we need to do something. This is where the heroes decide to become patriotic. Hyperion, our symbol of truth, justice, and American way, stands up and is like, we're going to adopt Power Princess's idea of utopia, of her people, and we're going to do it. We're going to, in 1 year, we're going to get rid of famine. We're going to get rid of hunger and disease and possibly even death, and build up this country. And of course, Nighthawk speaks up, and he's like, you're going to do all these things in America, and the people are not going to earn it. They're not going to evolve. They're not going to do anything. You're going to hand it over. You're going to trust all that power and responsibility to other people on a silver platter that they didn't earn, they won't appreciate. He tries to tell them, and everybody's just looking at him like, what? Kind of like he's an idiot. And this is where the book kind of tricks you. Through the whole 12 issues, I'm reading that these are our heroes, and of course we want all that. Of course, everybody should, nobody should have to starve. Nobody should have to, everybody should feel safe, and everybody, it should be a utopia for all of us. Why not? And everything like that. Everybody should just live in harmony and have no needs. And that's what we're getting away so for the 12 issues, you're kind of pulling for the heroes, and anybody that pops up to disrupt this, they are automatically the bad guys. Now we're fighting for ideals. We're not fighting for truth and justice. And you pull for the Squadron Supreme through this whole series, and then by the time you get to the end of it, you know, and over the years and stuff, you're right along with them. You're like, yeah, let's do this. And everybody that pops up, all the splinter groups, all the people, all the sleeper cells of people who still have guns and everything like that, who come after them, they refer to them as rednecks, and they really look down on them and stuff, and they're talking about how ignorant these people are and everything like that. You're on the side of the Squadron Supreme, and then all of a sudden, by the time you get to the end of the book, you realize the Squadron Supreme actually are a bunch of fascists for what they're trying to do. You've been fooled, and it just shows you how easy it is for the right words and giving people a direction and a common enemy on how easily they can be manipulated, because as you're reading this, you're one of those people, whether you know it or not. Okay? So anyway, they all, so Nighthawk is trying to warn them that this is not a good thing. We can't do this, okay? And then Hyperion is like, what are you talking about, man? If there's a way to save countless lives, who would be, what could be lost by war, crime, starvation, disease? We don't try to implement it. What kind of heroes are we? So Hyperion is saying, if we don't get proactive and try to wipe out all this stuff, how can we call ourselves heroes? And everybody's sort of like, a little bit, everybody's on the fence, and of course, with the shades of democracy, the whole team ends up taking a vote of how we want to do this. And this is where I started realizing Mark Gruenwald knows his DC stuff, because it made me think of when Batman, with this great cover, Batman the Outsiders #1, where Batman quit the Justice League because they're high in the skies. In Batman, well, the reason Batman quit is Batman was going through some stuff with Robin leaving, and when Robin's not around, Batman will get darker. And there was a situation where he wanted to go save a friend, but the Justice League were contacted by the UN not to go into this country due to political reasons. And Batman all of a sudden say, here we are sitting high up in our satellite, forgetting while we do this, while we look down on everybody on the world, like, we've set ourselves above them. And he quits, and he goes out and he ends up forming the Outsiders quite by accident, on a mission. He starts meeting characters and stuff. So right off the bat there, we get the finger point and everything, Nighthawk and Hyperion, and there's already a tension there, and he's going to go along with it. So you can read it, and you hear other people's philosophies, and they go out, and everywhere they go, man, there's people scared. There's no electricity. People are shooting at them when they fly in a window, even if they're friends, and they go visit family and all this stuff, right? And they're all happy-go-lucky. And then Nuke, we got to remember Nuke here, our young guy, our Firestorm of the bit. He goes and visits his parents who are in a hospital because they have cancer. And that's one of the reasons he's all up for this utopian society, is because, well, we're going to eradicate disease. That means we can save my parents, and these people can protect their families and everything. And of course, you have Tom Thumb. Now, Tom Thumb ends up being a very important character in here. He goes back to the satellite, and he gets right to work. Tom Thumb ends up being our blue-collar character. He ends up getting rid of the suit, and he's the one that's coming up with all these inventions and ideas. He's the one that is making things, all right? He is the one that is getting in there. And they even have him in a pair of blue coveralls finally when he abandons the suit. I mean, he, again, he is literally the blue-collar worker. And what happens as things go on? They end up ignoring him. They end up not giving him enough credit. They go talk to people in these speeches, and you have Truth, Justice, and the American Way, and you have Wonder Woman, there, and they're talking to the masses. You even have Green Lantern and other people. Green Lantern. You even have Dr. Spectrum and a few other ones. But when they go to have these big speeches, they just hand the mic over Tom Thumb as he's reaching, and the other person does it, and it's like they're taking all the credit and stuff. The person who's actually making this happen, the one that is actually giving them the tools to do this, the person that is actually figuring out how to make this work, doesn't get credit. And that's a very important part in this. Well, we go to Nighthawk returning to his mansion and stuff, and I love it because, like, there's little tidbits, going to Batman, like the secret, the secret passage behind the clock and stuff like that. He puts on a new costume, and he goes over there and he finds Argonite. I think that is basically a version of Kryptonite. And all of a sudden, Hyperion comes and knocks on his door, and we have the world's finest there talking to each other. And Hyperion is kind of saying, I don't want, to be an enemy. I still want us to be friends, but we're going on with this. And, we heard you when you say you weren't for it. And he said, you know what? It is a real shame how things went down, because you could have been, the next Abraham Lincoln. And then as Hyperion flies off, he goes, it's kind of funny that you're saying, you mentioned Lincoln. Again, we're going with history. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And he decides that he's going to assassinate Hyperion, much like Lincoln was assassinated. And what is the irony of the president being the one to do it? So, when they have a big press conference on the stands of the White House, and Hyperion is giving the speech to America, and Kyle Richards, their president, is there behind them, and they're talking to the masses, he pulls out the gun, and he's thinking about doing it. He's got to pull the trigger. This is what's best. He sees what's coming. And he doesn't do it. And there we go. They end up unmasking so that the people will trust them. There's no more secret identities. And the Squadron Supreme has decided that they're going to fix America. Now, I'm going to leave it at that. I may do a part 2 to this if people want to see it, right? That is just the first issue. And there's 12 issues to go, but I think I can go through those pretty quick, all right? So if you would like to see part 2 of the Squadron Supreme, give me a big thumbs up, put it in the comments, and let me know, and I'll get it up. All right? But that's politics for you. All right. Later, guys.